Hello, how are you? Welcome back. So today I have like a little bit of a show and tell. I just had the opportunity to purchase two pretty unique pieces of art and I'm super excited. So as a little backstory, John and I, if you know us, we like to collect kind of like unusual art, quirky pieces of art, things that like you can find at like junk shops, antique stores, different, various odd places. And so yeah, we've gathered like quite a collection over the past 8 years. And this latest piece is something that I'm going to be adding to it. And I think I'm going to do like a little tour of like a corner of our living room just to give you an idea of the kind of like quirky things that we're into. So I was given this opportunity to purchase this unique piece of American folk art. For those of you that don't know, I work at an art studio and gallery for adults with special needs. And a few years ago, we were given a pretty sizable donation from another gallery that specialized in American folk art. And they had some really cool things. They had their main artist, I think, one of their main artists was Bill Traylor. So if you're familiar with American folk art, he's a pretty big deal. And they had just like a really unique assortment of different things like, lawn art, quilts, little big and small pieces out of wood, paintings, like a large variety. And so we were very fortunate to receive this donation at the nonprofit that I work for. And this was probably about 3 years ago. And so over the years, we opened up a little shop and we were selling things, and we've kind of gotten down to the last few pieces. Well, I had my eye on this piece and it finally came down in price and I was able to afford it. So I got it and I got another piece too. So anyway, without further ado, here it is. So as you can see, this is a little hand-carved wooden diorama. And it doesn't have a signature on it or a year, so I don't know much about the artist, but oh my gosh, I just think it is so cool. It is so unique. If you just look in each face, each one has a different expression. And so basically what we have here is, it almost looks like it could be like a room in a church or someone's house where there's like a woman in the middle playing piano and an audience, and then the bride and groom, and then we have people dancing in a circle, gathering around them. Isn't this cool? I think this is so much fun. With my work, I like to make really fun pieces. I like to kind of explore my imagination. And I think that's why I kind of have an appreciation for folk art, is because each one tells a story and they're so unique and quirky, and they're just so interesting. One thing I love about folk art, or you can call it primitive work, art brut, there are tons of different names, outsider art. What I love about it is like they weren't given a large amount of material. Some of the other work that we were given as the donation was just made like completely out of toothpicks. They used, house paint. They just had to use what was available. And I think you can get really creative that way. People are still making American folk art. It has a long history in our country, and we saw quite a bit of it when we went to New Orleans. And that was really neat. So anyway, this is my new piece, and I bought 2 pieces, so I'll show you my next one in my little show and tell segment. So here's the next one. It's another diorama, and the title on this one was called Actor Backstage. So it's like a little guy that's like rehearsing his lines for a play, a list on the side of perhaps characters or actors in the play, and he has his script and he's smoking a cigar and he's got his hat and an umbrella and a little dog next to him. and it's all carved out of wood, glued together and painted. On the back here it says palace, stage entrance. I just love these pieces, and I have so much respect for the artists that made them. So there you go. Okay, so we are in the living room and we have this shelf with ceramic work. Now, all of these pieces I purchased at work by some of the artists that come to our studio to work. So we have quite an eclectic collection. Have a nude up there, have some battling nudes right here. We have a face, a very striking mask. We have some cars here. And then up here is kind of the secret language with different designs in between, almost remind me of owl faces. So we have our little ceramics collection there. Above we have another ceramic mask that John and I purchased at an art fair. Then over here we have some folk art that we purchased in New Orleans at a junk shop, hand painted. Original art on what appears to be a beer serving platter. The gentleman that worked in the shop told us that every year this brewery would have a contest to hand paint beer platters, beer trays, things that you would carry the beer out on. And it has some original writing on the side that that was part of the tray before it was painted. And I just think these pieces are so interesting. I have no idea the year that they were painted. I think the man in the shop said he thought possibly the 1950s. And they have a little story, I think, on each one. That one says wild African violets. So that one was most likely, I don't know. I don't know what it was inspired by. It reminds me of a children's book. I just think it's so cool. This one says, wasn't that a dainty dish? A little signature LW. And then this unusual piece is one that I made a few years back for an art show that I was involved in. And it was called a mischief show, and so we had to create pieces that included mischief. And so I made this little guy by different random parts that I picked up at the thrift store. Also at an estate sale I found these old puppets, handmade puppets, so I reappropriated that into my own piece. It's a guy that's sitting in a bathroom with plants in the toilet. He's watering the plants in a toilet, which is very unusual, very mischievous, and the toilet paper is running off all the way down. And then we have our bookcase over here. We'll start down here at the bottom. This is a piece of folk art from Costa Rica. We have in fact been to Costa Rica, however we did not buy that there. We got it at a junk shop here in California. This is a piece of original artwork from an artist at the studio that I work at. Same artist as this one, another ceramic piece. Then up here we have an original vase that a ceramic artist made that we bought at an art fair. This is a Czechoslovakian art piece. I traveled to Slovakia and the Czech Republic and Austria after I graduated high school when I was 18. I had a friend that I had met there through an exchange program that we had in our high school, and I went to visit her, and this is a piece that I purchased. It's enamelware on tin. I thought that guy was kind of cool. Unusual, almost kind of witches with their long noses, and green skin. This is a very old Japanese basket that we inherited. I believe it goes back to around the turn of the century. This little guy is a sculpture that I purchased when I lived in Chicago at an art opening. He's made of porcelain. This is an interesting antique vase, very Picasso-esque. Here we have a ceramic piece that we purchased in Spain on our honeymoon at the Picasso Museum. I believe that is a clip from Guernica. This piece over here, let's see, is a hand-blown heart. It's a piece of Mexican folk art that we purchased in Las Vegas. This here is another Japanese piece that I found at a thrift store. I believe the woman that worked there said it dated back to around the 1920s or 30s. It's like a little tea kettle. This is a handmade frame from a very good friend that lives in Chicago. It's given to us as a wedding gift, and that is our wedding picture. And then over here is where I put the gentleman actor, right on the top shelf. Next to him is another piece of folk art, Mexican folk art, and we purchased this at a tribal arts fair, and this appears to be a lady of the night, is the story that we were given in a small town, very notorious woman, kind of a local character. And that about does it for this corner of the house. Okay, so that should give you an idea of some of the type of art that we appreciate around here. We have many more pieces. It would just take like a bigger time commitment to go around and talk about each of them, but who knows, maybe someday. Yeah, so I'm super excited to hang that new piece. Just have to figure out where. And ideally it should be up high so that little fingers aren't tempted to play with it.